Hi, everyone. I am Laura Edell, otherwise known as Annielytics, and welcome to the Annielytics podcast. I am super excited today to be interviewing Tamia Booker. Hello, Tamia.
Hi, Laura. So glad to meet you and everyone on the Annielytics podcast community and team.
You know, Shannon Kuhn is one of Keen. Oh, I almost said her name wrong. Shannon is one of my closest friends, confidant at work. How do you know Shannon?
Actually, I met her outside and before work. I was working for a state agency here in Georgia, and I was also studying for, I think, my 12th Microsoft certification, and I passed it. And I was in a community, thank you. I was in a community pretty much fielding some of the questions for some of those that are going to sit for the exam. And she and I had extremely similar understanding with respect to Azure Cloud and some of the foundational methods to apply the approaches there. And we just hit it off. And then we kept the relationship going for 2 years.
Yeah, that's exactly how. So she and I laughed on my podcast about how I met her when I was pilfering Splenda at a Ready conference. And she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "This is my grandma's like World War II mentality." I was like, "I got to take free Splenda with me everywhere I go."
I love it. I love it. Get it where you can.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's our shout out to Shannon. We think you're great. So I wanted to talk to you. You know, this is a Women in Tech podcast, but really I like to center on our different experiences and, you know, coming up in your career. And, you know, one of the things that we've talked a lot about on this show is the imposter syndrome, or that voice in your head that tells you you can't do something. And I would love to know what your thoughts are on the imposter syndrome.
Oh, I have many stories to tell. We don't have the time, girlfriend.
No, we'll
We
make
don't have the
time.
time. I will say that in essence, my career in tech has spanned over 24 years. And I came up through the ranks as not only most often the only woman in tech, but the only young woman in tech and the only woman of color in tech. And so you can imagine all of the things that are commonly discussed now: gender equality, pay inequality, race, all of those things were placed upon me before I had the ability to define and determine my own identity as a technician, you see.
Wow. Yeah.
And so you take the absence of that basis and you layer being in oftentimes a male dominated field and team. I was ripe for the fitting to have such a long journey with imposter syndrome. And I will spare you some of the really sad stories
No,
today.
don't spare, but
No, we'll have tea and coffee and I'll take some of your Splenda and we'll talk. How's that?
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but what I've learned that I think I would definitely want to, and I do mentor others who seem to at times find their sense of identity and connection with me with
Mm-hmm.
respect to the imposter syndrome. I
Mm-hmm.
always tell them to, when they detect that the fear is coming upon them, to simply have an attitude and a spirit of yes. Yes, you can. Yes, you're here for a reason. Yes, this is not by happenstance. Yes, you're so valuable. That's what this is. It's communication trying to tell you that you're invaluable and you have nothing to bring to the table. And in that moment when you're saying yes, always say yes to whatever task is at hand. I have had so many opportunities where my male colleagues would not step up to do the hard work. I remember one particular opportunity where right at lunchtime, we had a major security breach at my prior job,
Mm-hmm.
and my entire team went on lunch. No one, they left.
That's terrible.
They
That's terrible.
left. So here I am, the mom who packs lunches.
Right.
Where am I going? Nowhere. Which means that, okay, I'll go investigate it. It was not part of my role to do threat hunting or to mitigate any type of attacks. But because I was odd man out or odd woman out, I
Yeah.
stepped forward. And that one yes, Laura, allowed me to take a lunch hour and turn it into a 72-hour working session where everything pertaining to enterprise security with that agency I learned. I then became the only one who knew everything about our security plane. I was the only person to be able to complete our NIST and cybersecurity audits at a state and federal level. No one could touch it but me. And ultimately, I morphed into the very first in-house security analyst for that agency. And I was able to set up policies, protocols, and procedures, change control for security and how it was governed for my agency, and other agencies followed suit.
I have
And
goosebumps. Oh, yes.
and I believe, and I'll just get through it, but I believe that that one yes that turned into a 72-hour working weekend really set the stage for me to be here at Microsoft, where I am one of the security cloud solutions architects there. So I believe that just yes, not paying attention to the fear, but simply saying yes. Sometimes you might not even know what you're saying yes to, but say it anyway.
I love that. Recently I was talking to my family and I was just having one of those days. And I just remember, someone saying to me, you know what, just say, and it's exactly the point you just said, just say yes. So I kept saying, no, I can't do it. No, yes, you can. Say, yes, you can. I was like, the more I thought about it, it's that whole idea of, you fake your brain until you make it. And so I love that is the feedback you give your mentees, because that's a passion area of mine as well, is taking the girls in STEM, girls who code, Digi girls. I have several mentees, and I tell this story because recently one of the girls that I have mentored for years has now graduated from college and is entering the career workforce in tech. And it's like amazing as a woman of tech. And she started with being so insecure and not sure she could do it, and her family was not supportive of her and her math love, so she used to hide it and pretend to be dumb, and it was just, she's gone through such a journey, and to see her now joining the tech field makes me incredibly proud. I'm sure. How do you feel about that with your mentees?
Oh, wonderful. Sometimes that's a crazy question, crazy good question. Here's why. I have, in the last 12 months, especially the portion in which the pandemic has pretty much sat us all down, and we've become reflective, in so many ways, and reaching out to check on loved ones and friends and associates and all of that. We've had time.
Right.
And in this, I guess, 9 months or so, I've had individuals who I mentored, did not know that I was their mentor, come to me and tell me wonderful stories that I don't remember of doing what I did. And I'm like, you gotta be effing kidding me. I did what now? What did I do? And to see where they are, yes, and to see, much like your story, where these wonderful women have ended up, and to see the growth that they wear in their own genius, and to know that I had a teaspoon full of help in that, blows me away. It blows me away.
No, it's amazing. And we talk a lot about this idea on my last podcast with Gretchen O'Hara about reverse mentorship. One of the things I didn't realize when I got into mentoring was how much I would learn from them. And it's a beautiful thing, that symbiosis that occurs, and you have that reciprocity, with your mentees, and you learn from them, and, you're guiding them. And you're right. If we can just have a teaspoon impact on where they go, I mean, it's the greatest thing, at least for me.
Yeah, me as well.
So let me ask you, one of the things I know that if I could go back and tell my former self is, to really not pay so much attention to certain people's feedback and change yourself entirely just because somebody thinks maybe you don't dress the way you should, or you don't look the way you should. And I wish I could go back in time and just tell my younger self that. What would you, if you could take a time machine and tell your younger self something, what would it be and why?
The first thing that I would tell myself is, in the field that you are in, never lose your femininity.
Exactly.
As much as I was on the floor cabling, or up in the ceiling rafters, wiring, dropping cable left and right, take your heels off, put them to the side, and girl, you crawl up there and knock that shit out.
Oh, I love you.
That's the first thing. So this glam, this pop is just for you. So yes, I see yours too. And so that's the first thing, which brings about the next thing, which is to, along the journey, build your instinct muscles. I personally believe and subscribe to the fact that we as women, whether you are in the US or in India or Europe or South America, Canada, it does not matter. We have an instinct within us at our core that most men don't have. And if you can take that with your technical aptitude, that makes you the what? The what?
That shit.
You got it.
It's true. No, I mean, it's amazing that inner voice, the, women's intuition, whatever you want to call it, when you can take and listen to that and really hone that spirit and follow it, it's remarkable. And a lot of guests that have come on here have talked a lot about following their dreams, taking that risk, that jump. Do you think it is within you, what propels you to take those jumps, those risks when, something new is in front of you and you have no experience with it, let's say?
A couple of things. First of which, I can be airheadish. I
doubt that.
I can. A lot of things can get over this, this cute bun here sometimes. I can be airheadish and not really recognize what is being asked or what is happening. And then I wake up, I'm like, oh my God, what did I just say yes to? We're back at that again. The next thing that I would say is that also I grew up, I'm from the Midwest and I live here in Atlanta now. And coming up, I was raised in a state of abject poverty. We were homeless until I was 19.
Oh my gosh, so same with oh my gosh, you're gonna make me cry now. Yes, I was just telling that same story. My mom had struggles with drugs and we were homeless for a big portion of time, but she pulled herself up by bootstraps and ended up getting her degree. And so I love that. Well, I don't
so that this may resonate with you as well. So coming up from that type of rearing, it creates a grit in you.
Yes.
Everything becomes you must do. Yes. It's almost teetering on survival or hustle.
Exactly.
And it's natural for me.
Exactly.
And it's not a stressor. It does not come off even in the engagement of others that will create stress for them. And so when I'm faced with things, I'm literally staring that sucker down, saying, we're going to solve this effing problem today because I need a nap. Or I'm going to give this customer something. This happened yesterday, in fact. I'm going to give this customer more than what he asked for because he's deserving, that company is deserving, Microsoft is deserving, and guess what? I'm deserving as well to do what others may not be able to do.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a time when I, very much arrogantly, because I know I'm good at what I do, would say that out loud. And I would come back around now that I'm older and just realize, like, when we own who we are, we don't need to say anything. It just shows. Right. I think to your point, those are things that's that inner confidence, that inner voice, that absolutely, it really resonates with me, what you just said.
Oh, thank you. Likewise.
Yeah, I think, the thing about my kid, I have a 10-year-old son and he does not have any of the challenges I had. And it kind of annoys me because I have not taught in him the perseverance and grit that I had to succeed. I was, there is nothing that somebody can give me. Knock me down, I will come back. Knock me down, I will come back. I am literally that driven.
Resilient, yeah.
Yes. And so my word is moxie, because we all had to come up with our one word. But for me, it's that moxie to just, and that's the synonym I looked up for resiliency.
I love it.
My son is literally like me. Sometimes he doesn't want to do stuff because we made it so easy for him. And I look at that now like I've done a disservice. I hear you have a daughter, and I'd love to know some of the life lessons you're teaching your daughter so I can become a better parent.
Oh, you already are.
No.
Let's kill that. You already are. So my daughter's 17.
Okay.
And I would say my daughter may be similar to your son. Oh, she really? Was born, I believe, with the gift of being a peacemaker. Okay. I was not. I am a shit starter. I'm a shaker upper. I am, let's get it right. I don't have time for this. We are polar opposites in this house. She lives on that wing. I live on that wing, and we're good. However, because I understand the climate of our global world, and because I understand what corporate America, should she go down that path, will serve her, again, Not much has changed. I don't care what industry you go through or to, but she will always be a woman. She'll always be a woman of color. And at some point, she will be the youngest one in the room. And so, with that said, I have told her, I recognize that you being a peacemaker is a gift in and of itself. I don't have that, and that's fine. But here's the deal: you don't have to replicate me. You don't have to be an architect like me. You don't have to be a technician like me. However, you must think analytically like me. You must think technically like me. Where we are in technology will only go further.
Right.
Everything in this world and on this planet requires what we do. If
Absolutely.
we cease to exist, the world should and probably would collapse on many different fronts and levels. I would also tell her to speak up. Early on in my technical career, I didn't know I had a voice my own voice among my men counterparts. They got over on me, Laura. They
Yeah.
did.
Me too.
Yeah. And I would tell her to speak up as a woman that makes you diverse,
Absolutely.
period.
Exactly.
As a woman, you exist to be heard and to bring balance and inclusivity to your team and your work. That is all the world wants and needs. Do your part and do it well. That's it.
I love that. That is tremendous advice. You know, that it's similar advice I've given my son, and the way he translated that in his brain when he was in the third grade is a bully was picking on a kid and calling him mudblood. And I know it comes from Harry Potter, but it wasn't the reference of how he was referring to it at. And my son stood up to this bully who was in the fifth grade, much bigger than him. And he said, I know it must be hard at home, because I had given him some background that bullies aren't born bullies, but oftentimes their home life maybe has taught them that. I know your home life is maybe hard, but you shouldn't speak to people that way. And he
Right.
just said that on the playground in front of everybody, and it made this person walk away. And so I've always taught him, if that had ended up in a fight, I'm okay with that, because you're defending something that you're passionate about. And so
Right.
for me, it's teaching that, instilling in him to stand up for what's right, and
Yes.
and speak your mind when you do it. Don't sit back and watch and say like, oh, look, she got murdered and everybody was watching in the courtyard.
Yeah.
Be that person that's going to make that change. And so
Right.
I love what you just said about your daughter, because you're right. Coming into it being the youngest person in the room, I think was the hardest part of my career, because to get taken seriously, you have to speak your ideas. To speak your ideas, you have to not be afraid in front of those men.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about, I hear you have quite a few stories about church and maybe studying in church, and I'm a little intrigued about that.
Yeah. So I am a church girl. I
Okay.
probably will always be. I am also different in that perspective as well, much like my technical bandwidth. I have a lot of different beliefs, but Christianity is the one that I hinge everything upon.
Okay.
And in my 20s, as I mentioned earlier, um, I didn't really understand the degree of the power and the dominance that men whom I worked with had over me. I simply thought that that's how things were supposed to be, that they were supposed to send me away for the weekend with a laptop, two cell phones, on call duty, in the middle of the night and early morning. And then I was supposed to fold in my parental duties with that, fold in the laundry, the cooking, the bill paying, the church going, trying to figure out when I'm going to be a sister girl with my girlfriends, right?
Mhm.
And then come back on Monday as though I had a dandy old goddamn time. And I was tired as hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had fun. They had lots of real fun, and they were refreshed, and their clothes were ironed and mine were wrinkled, and all of these things. And I distinctly remember, Laura, one particular spring Sunday,
Mhm.
I was hustling. I had the infant in tow. I had the diaper bag, the carrier, the laptop, the cell phones, and whatever else was hinged to my body besides me. I was everything to everyone, all chopped up into bits. And I remember opening the church door only to find once I got in, the only place for me was at the back pew, the very last pew. And that became my space. It became my office. It became my changing station. It became my place of self-release to get off all the stress. And what I learned over the many years of having to tug all that stuff and to keep going was that many of my counterparts and my colleagues, even though it was not malicious, they intended to dump upon me. I was golden for it. But little did they know, I had the eye of senior leadership. They saw me as being available, capable, as well as dependable. And so in the end, it created a series of promotions, fast promotions. I mean, that would make your head spin. I went from being on the phones in support to managing support for the US, India, and Europe in a day.
Okay, you're right. My head is spinning.
In a day. So and with respect to church, although I could not express myself the way I had intended, 12 years later, I would be handpicked by 2 high-profile pastors to come and lead their technical operations. So that I thought I was missing from church showed up many years later in a better form.
That is such a brilliant story. I mean, you never know, in the network of all the people you interact with in this world may come around and surface, your skills, your work, your passion up to work with them. And so I think that's brilliant. We are running out of time, but I have one last question for you that I ask everybody.
Okay.
And I'm very keen to hear your answer. If you were to have a dinner party, and this is going to be a fabulous dinner party because I can already tell and I want to be invited, but I'm not one of the 2, and you could only bring 2 people, could be dead or alive, they could be fictional or non, who would those 2 people be and why?
Okay, easy. I like to eat. So the first thing is I would bring your great-great-grandchild and my great-great-grandchild to a spaghetti dinner. These are children who are unborn to time. And I would bring them and I would show them my iPhone. I would park a Tesla outside. I would bring them the latest newspaper from this day. I would talk to them about the Trump administration, the Biden administration. I would talk to them about global events. And I would ask them, so what do you guys think? And I would take the innocence of their opinion and I would bring it back to our era. And I would sit down with you and your team and my team at Microsoft and all of our colleagues together at a buffet. And I would say, although we don't have time to change everything before our babies come, we do have the time to course correct social injustice. We got to get it right.
Right.
We have time to determine whether or not the technology that we build and the security practices that we perform today are good enough to hand over to them. Are we prepared for our babies? That's what I would say. That's
Your
what the
answer is. I thought Genevieve gave me one of the best answers, but I actually think now you've supplanted it. That answer is brilliant. I love it. No one has gone into the future to bring them into our world and have that.
Really?
No, you're the first.
Oh, wow.
I'm a quantum physics major, and so I love that that's where you went with your answer.
I love it.
It's brilliant. So I've enjoyed talking. I'm actually going to ping you right after this because I want to spend some time getting to know you. I can see why Shannon likes you so much. You are an amazing, amazing person.
Thank you so much.
And I mean that genuinely. I've had such a, I mean, this half hour flew.
I know, we need more time.
I know. The fact that you brought up the whole idea of being feminine and owning it and not letting, your job tell you and dictate how you should quote unquote look, it just obviously rang to my heart as I wear the leopard hat on the call. So thank you very much for being,
Thank you, my pleasure.
so honest and real, that, you know, I can't thank you enough. I mean, there's a lot of times when people are not real in these kind of things, but you brought it. So
Oh,
you
thank you
did.
so much. Thank you to your team and your audience. This has been a pleasure and a dream. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.